Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you in here on a Tuesday. Today I'm not joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. He'll be back on Friday's show, but we have a action-packed show today. A lot about contracts, a lot about money, a lot about disgruntled players and coaches. It's a crazy show that we're going to have today, but let's start out with our first topic. Let's jump right into it with our first topic of today's show. So I want to talk about one person in particular. You combine patience with impatience, greed and not greed, and it's very confusing. But those adjectives right there represent one person, and that's Jerry Jones. He's a very patient guy when it comes to signing players' contracts. CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Lawrence, Dak Prescott as well, Dez Bryant, even if you go farther down the line. So he's very patient when it comes to contracts. He's impatient when it comes to winning championships. This year, it's all about being all in, right? All in. But does all in mean all in? He's an extremely confusing person because all in does not mean they're going to spend a bunch of money. Hell, they spent the least amount of money during free agency this past offseason, spent the fewest amount of money. But I think it's about by $30 million. I think the next lowest is the New Orleans Saints at 41. They have about $14 million that they spent. But he also wants to win a Super Bowl here. I mean, the years are counting for him. His life expectancy is waning as the days go on just because of the fact that he's been the owner of the Dallas Cowboys since 1989. But it turns out it's not only that. He's also undermining his own head coach, Mike McCarthy, who, according to Tyler Dunn with Go Long, a source told him that he's, quote, he's doing the best that he can. Some of the people that he's talked to have said that he's being fed up with it a little bit. And it gets worse and worse as you keep going along with this. A lot of a lot of sources think that the Cowboys, and especially Jerry Jones, should have given Mike McCarthy at least a 1-year extension. You don't need to give him 5+ years. I wouldn't. But give him at least one more to secure his job. They think that's kind of a bad move on Jerry Jones' part. So you got to at least secure his job for 1 year. It got so bad that the players themselves aren't even worried about the coaching staff, and they're more so worried about Jerry Jones interfering. The quotes keep going on. The sources keep talking by saying this, quote, multiple people high up in the organization indicate that current players are more concerned about Jerry Jones than their own head coach. They know ownership can undermine the head coach at any moment. That's kind of true. Mike McCarthy, coaching-wise, not that bad. Yes, he's had a couple blunders when it comes to time management. Look at the Jimmy Garoppolo playoff game back in 21, I believe. He called up a QB draw with about 20. It might have been, I think it was like 14, 15 seconds left in the game. The game was over. Jimmy G beat him in the playoffs. There's been a couple moments like that, but overall, 12-5 the past 3 seasons. I think, honestly, Jerry Jones is being less lenient with Mike McCarthy than he did with Jason Garrett, who had a bunch of 500-win seasons. And what's kind of funny is I heard a lot of people talking about this when, this report came out by Tyler Dunn saying that Mike McCarthy was fed up. And the question that was posed was, could Mike McCarthy get fired mid-season? Well, in Jerry Jones' tenure as the owner and as the de facto GM, even though I think he's just straight up the GM, he's only done it once in his entire tenure since 1989. And that was back in 2010. Wade Phillips went 1-7. Then he fires and brings in Jason Garrett, who goes 5-3. Only once since 1989 when he became the owner. So I don't think that's going to happen. And truthfully, I think there's really a near 0% chance that it does happen. The schedule to start out with is decently hard. Your first 4 games, you could easily win 2 of them. It's at Cleveland versus New Orleans versus Baltimore and at New York. You could definitely win 2 of those games hands down. Then you're at Steelers. I think that's a win. Versus Detroit, then at San Francisco. Those could be 2 losses right there. At Atlanta versus Philly, you did decently well against Philly over the past couple years. Versus Houston, C.J. Stroud, I think he's going to be tremendous again. I think he's going to continue his great streak. At Washington, what's Jaden Daniels going to look like? Then versus New York. I mean, it's decently hard, but I think it's the Cowboys. They have a lot of talent already. But the fact that Mike McCarthy and players are afraid, not of the fact that Mike McCarthy may screw him over, is that Jerry Jones could come in and manipulate situations. And I think, honestly, it doesn't give a lot of wiggle room for the coaching staff to take accountability because it's all Jerry Jones. So I think it's very, very difficult for Mike McCarthy to really impose his will and impose maybe his coaching style when, it's kind of a losing situation because Jerry Jones could do whatever he wants to do. He is the owner, but still he's a meddling owner. And I think that's what makes it the worst out of it all. So how can a team buy into a system that isn't the head coach's? Yes, you did sign a head coach. Hell, you signed a new defense coordinator in Mike Zimmer. After you didn't like Dan Quinn's job, you let Dan Quinn go and become a head coach. You didn't want to bring him back again for another ride. So how can you believe in a system, and a head coach's system, that he doesn't even have full control over? Normally. It's really the head coach, and it could be if your head coach is there for long enough, he becomes the de facto GM, like Belichick, like Pete Carroll, and none one of these guys has control over the say in who comes into this, who comes onto the team, who they draft and whatnot. But the system isn't even Mike McCarthy's fully. It's kind of Jerry Jones in a large part of it. And what I also find funny is that this contract situation, let's go about the non-patience factor for a second. I said Dak Prescott isn't worth $60 million, and I don't think he is. He's not an elite quarterback. I think he's more of a fraud than he is, a truth of a great elite quarterback. I don't think he is. However, though, in terms of his tenure with the Cowboys, he's the third leading passer in franchise history. He had his best season of his entire career. He had a career high in passer rating, completion percentage. He led the NFL with 36 touchdowns. I don't think he's worth $60 million. However, Dak Prescott hasn't been a total bum on the Cowboys and creating arguments and then dropping out of OTAs and disappearing and going on darkness retreats as one quarterback has in the past. Albeit, he has accepted the franchise tag twice. He's restructured his contract 4 times over the past 4 years. He's trying to make it work. And honestly, Jerry Jones decided, you know what? He allowed him to do this. He forced this upon Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott bit back with a $40 million contract, which Jerry Jones even admitted, he kind of got when it comes to that situation. And in the same exact type of a situation where Jerry Jones won't sign his big-time players to big-time contracts early enough, Dak Prescott has the upper hand with a no-trade clause, no franchise tag clause. He's asking for $60 million or he walks. Jerry Jones is in another precarious situation. Not only that, the number one wide receiver that proved to be a true wide receiver one on the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb. They have to sign him to a contract very, very soon. Since joining the NFL in 2020, Lamb has the 5th most yards, a little over 5,100, of any wide receiver. He led the league in receptions last season. And also, not only that, they decided after all that work, he's going to try to hold out. He's going to stay away from the team. He got fined $101,000 for missing the team's mandatory minicamp. It's kind of on him, though. And I think, honestly, we heard a report Brandon Cooks had a great OTA session. Now, I'm not saying he's going to replace CeeDee Lamb, but normally, you don't want a guy behind you taking. It's the same thing with running backs. You don't want the guy behind you showing that he could maybe, at a very, very cheaper price, create similar or the same production as you. I don't think Brandon Cooks will. I just want to preface that first. However, though, it is a little bit unfair that you have these top-tier players and you refuse to pay them. And it got so bad. When it came to CeeDee Lamb's contract, and that's when and Justin Jefferson signed a massive 4-year, $140 million deal, and also A.J. Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown got their pretty big contracts, Jerry Jones responded on the Dallas Morning News by saying, I saw the same contracts you saw. Bottom line is, I haven't had time to think about them, especially with those receivers now. Nobody was moving too fast to get involved. Now I just don't care to or even will express any thoughts about the contract or the impact of that contract. Well, the impact is massive because contracts for wide receivers are going up. These numbers are incredible. Justin Jefferson, massive sum of money. A.J. Brown, $32.5 million, I believe. Amon-Ra St. Brown, making more than Tyreek Hill. Brandon Aiyuk's upset about a contract. We'll talk about him very, very shortly. But if you're not willing to pay CeeDee Lamb 32, 33, hell, even $35 million if he's trying to be on the same level as Justin Jefferson, then what are you going to do? You're going to let him walk? I mean, he's on the franchise tag for 2025. But I don't think CeeDee Lamb's going to give up anytime soon. T. Higgins tried twice. He asked to be on a trade. He got franchise tagged, asked to be on a trade again, then signed his franchise tag. I don't think CeeDee Lamb's going to take that route. Because guess what? What does Jerry Jones always do? He's extremely patient. Except when it comes to the 11th hour, the 59th minute, and the 59th second. Then he overpays for every single one of his players. Zach Martin, Des Bryant, Marcus Lawrence. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Jerry Jones gives in eventually. And that's what the Cowboys, every single Cowboy, if you have a lot of talent and you're in a contract year, hold out. You'll get the money. You'll get at least very, very close to the amount of money that you were asking for, just because it is Jerry Jones. And he gives in eventually. It may take you a little while. You may have to be on a franchise tag deal for 1 year. However, you will end up getting the right amount of money, or at least very close to it, Because like I said, Jerry Jones is too patient, but also very impatient. He's stubborn, but not stubborn. It's very confusing. He meddles, but he's meddling. He's Jerry Jones is an owner. He's won a couple Super Bowls here and there years ago. He's trying to regain that level of winning. But with the way he's approaching these types of contract situations and personnel decisions, it just doesn't work. Contracts are going up. The time to sign players is now. That's why Justin Jefferson got his massive deal when he did, although I think it was a year too late. CeeDee Lamb, it's going to be a year too late. Dak Prescott, it's going to be a year too late. Amon-Ra St. Brown got signed early. We're seeing these receivers get signed very early. We're seeing these players get signed very early, as they should. I mean, hell, one really good season, the Eagles signed Jalen Hurts to a $51 million a year contract. Did he look that great this year? Was he hurt? Was he playing hurt? Who knows? All I know is that they lost, I think, 6 of their last 7 games and got the crap beat out of them by Baker Mayfield in the first playoff game. It was embarrassing to watch. Jerry Jones needs to acknowledge the fact that he's not going to, but the way that he goes about contract situations and the way he controls his team, there's a reason why the Cowboys haven't won in like 30 years. I don't think overpaying for players when you could sign them early. I also don't think that meddling with your coach's decisions is a great idea. I also don't think being conservative in a free agent period that had a decent amount of talent is not the right way to go about things. They got to move pieces. $14 million, I think they spent in free agency. The next lowest was the New Orleans Saints at $41 million. That's a massive discrepancy. And especially with another failure in the playoffs, whether you want to blame the defense, get more defensive pieces. Whether you want to blame Dak Prescott, well, you decided to get Trey Lance a couple years ago or a year ago. It's not horrible. You've seen him for about 10 minutes. I don't know if you think he's your future. He's cheaper. You had Russell Wilson as an option. You had, if you want to go that route, you had Justin Fields as an option. Stuck with Trey Lance. I don't hate the decision, but it's just we haven't seen him. So, meddling with your head coach and his decisions, I understand where Mike McCarthy's coming from. It's not like he's had a lack of success necessarily. Jerry Jones has been very lenient with previous head coaches. But now, in Mike McCarthy, I think this is his 5th year as the head coach. It's, okay, you're on the hot seat. Dak Prescott's everybody's on the hot seat. We're all in on this season. It's Super Bowl or bust, as it should be. But it's like this season, there's so much unnecessary pressure. Because Dak Prescott's playing for a contract. Mike is playing for a contract. CeeDee's playing for a contract. Mike McCarthy is playing for a long-term contract if he wants to stay as the head coach of the Cowboys. It's unnecessary. You put all this pressure on top of being America's team already. On top of having, I think, the biggest stadium in the NFL. You could hold like 100,000 fans. On top of the fact that you're expected to win every single year. It doesn't matter what's going on. Your fans always expect you to win because Cowboy fans are a nice special breed of fans. Like I said, they're like the Los Angeles Lakers or any top team in any other major sport that's had some success in the past. You're expected to repeat it. Patriots fans are just starting to feel that now. Without Tom Brady, you went to Cam Newton. It was a bit of an ugly ride. Then you go to Mac Jones and this promise, and then it fell apart. And now we might see Jacoby Brissett back as the starting quarterback instead of a promising young rookie in Drake May. Or it could be Drake May, but it could be a rocky start. It's very confused. A lack of winning, and Patriots fans are confused. High expectations always when we have to realize that this team isn't good. Dak Prescott might be a top 12 quarterback at the max, kind of like a Kirk Cousins. He is Kirk Cousins. He's also asking for $60 million after Trevor Lawrence, who's had an okay career so far. Horrible start, although a lot of people blame Urban Meyer. A decent second year with Doug Peterson. They made a playoffs, won a playoff game, could have beaten the Chiefs. And then a third year where he gets hurt, but isn't hurt enough to not sit out, so he plays and he looks bad. I'm giving him the Baker treatment. You decided to play. That's the type of performance you're putting on. I can't really give you the benefit of the doubt. Dak Prescott, we all know. Playoffs, it's ugly. If you have a minimum 5 games played in the playoffs, he has the lowest winning percentage. I think it's tied for the lowest winning percentage in NFL history. Minimum 5 playoff games played. It's bad. It's very, very bad. So, I understand. But what we've seen from the Cowboys is what we're going to keep seeing. 12-5. Dak's going to make the playoffs. They'll probably win the NFC East or be right there with the Eagles. and then lose in devastating fashion. Whether or not it's a close game and Dak throws a pick, or they get blown out and Dak throws a pick, all I know is that Dak Prescott will throw an interception. That's all I know. So, let's get into our next topic here. So, Brandon Aiyuk, this is a crazy story. We all know that he's disgruntled with his contract situation. But Ryan Clark revealed on NFL Live Monday that San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has been taking negotiations personal, and the offers so far have affected him. Aiyuk obviously wants to stay with San Fran, but he's comfortable playing elsewhere if they are willing to trade him and not willing to meet his contract demands. He's seeking $30 million per year, reportedly, after Amon-Ra St. Brown got his massive deal, along with Justin Jefferson. I'm sure he looked at that contract and said, why can't I get that contract? Or any one of the top receivers. We'll bring it up again. Any one of these other top receivers, especially A.J. Brown. So he's a little bit disgruntled. So there's a lot. And we also heard of, I think everybody saw the video of him with Jaden Daniels on Instagram. Was it? No, the video was on TikTok. They were on FaceTime. And Aiyuk said, they don't want me anymore. Well, it's $26 million. Ain't that bad of money. I don't think, truthfully, you're worth $35 million like Justin Jefferson. I don't think you're even worth A.J. Brown's money of $32.5. I think you're more around the Amon-Ra St. Brown. Spot Track actually rates you at a little over $26 million. So the 49ers are not necessarily off when it comes to giving you a legitimate contract that's respectable. They're not trying to overpay you. They're definitely not trying to underpay you like you think. Right now, you're in your fifth-year option, which is $14.1 million. It's not bad. That's not bad money at all. Would I like that $14.1 million? Hell yeah, I would. What's funny is, when they spoke, according to Ryan Clark, wasn't alone. He was also with Jaden Daniels, who was his friend at college and a teammate of Aiyuk. So this is something. This is definitely something. What's also fascinating is that the Commanders turned down a trade offer for Brandon Aiyuk. That's what Schefter is reporting. Schefter made sure to mention, this is a quote, that the 49ers and the Commanders had discussions about an Aiyuk trade back in April, but that Washington wouldn't pull the trigger. Why? Washington, you would probably need to give up Terry McLaurin, but do you think that Terry McLaurin is a better wide receiver than Brandon Aiyuk? Is that why you didn't want to pull the trigger? Well, if that's the case, let's take a look at Terry McLaurin's contract annually. I got to keep scrolling all the way to 14. He's making $22.7 million. If you want to round it up, it's $22.8 million a year. Average annual salary. So if you're not, or if Brandon Aiyuk won't accept 26, they may have traded you. They didn't think you were worth $23 million. They wouldn't pull the trigger. Which honestly, the Commanders don't have a lot. So if you didn't want to give up Terry McLaurin, I could kind of understand that. But offensive line is a complete mess. Early ratings for their 2024-2025 offensive line rankings, they're dead last. I can understand why. The Giants at least improved their offensive line. The Commanders still look like they're horrible. I'll pray for Jaden Daniels not to get killed out there like Sam Howell did last season. I think Sam Howell had 65 sacks. Yeah, Jaden Daniels is not built to take a pounding for 65 times a year. And there's also QB hits added onto that don't count as sacks. So John Lynch says that he will not trade Brandon Aiyuk. He just won't. However, Brandon Aiyuk, I think, will hold out. I think he's disgruntled. I think that he's very upset. I don't understand why. It's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. I wish we heard a number. At least there was a rumored number of guaranteed money Lamar Jackson wanted. Does Brandon Aiyuk think he's $36 million a year? Does he think he's 33, 34? Give us a number here. He's also been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which obviously, if the Pittsburgh Steelers can get Brandon Aiyuk, that would be a hell of a receiving core. Absolutely. George Pickens, Roman Wilson, now you add Brandon Aiyuk to that lineup. It ain't that bad. The one thing playing against Brandon Aiyuk is that the 49ers offensively are probably the most talented team and the deepest team in the NFL. Because if you take Brandon Aiyuk out of the lineup, let's just take a look at this right now. So offensively, Brock Purdy's your quarterback. Now, I don't know how you think about Brock Purdy. I think, and PFF even said this, he was the most helped quarterback last year. I can completely understand that because of the fact that the wide receiver core is insane. So running back-wise, you have Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. Those are a pretty good 1-2 combo. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is incredible, but Elijah Mitchell, we have to remember, was the starting running back for a number of years, or at least he started when Raheem Mostert got hurt. Like there were a couple nice moments from Mitchell where he kind of shined pretty nicely. So wide receiver-wise, you have Deebo Samuel. Pretty good wide receiver. He was the best screen receiver. Yards per reception was pretty damn good. Juwan Jennings, who had a couple very, very nice catches. You got your Ricky Pearsall, who we've seen some very acrobatic catches, can be an explosive receiver. Not that bad. George Kittle as your tight end. Those 4 pieces right there. That's pretty good. So they don't necessarily need Brandon Aiyuk. They're not like the Patriots and are desperate for a wide receiver 1. They're not, and let's even say this. I think the Panthers could use a true wide receiver 1. The Giants, they got Malik Neighbors. So I guess before Malik Neighbors, you could have used him. Washington tried to get him, but you didn't want to give up Scary Terry probably. Miami's got one. Jets have one. Buffalo could use one right now. You want to say Keon Coleman's your guy? Or Khalil Shakir? I don't think so. Curtis Samuel? I'm not entirely sure. Baltimore would love to have a Brandon Aiyuk type of character, type of receiver. Cleveland, no. Pittsburgh, they've been linked as a potential trade partner. So Brandon Aiyuk's at a disadvantage because the 49ers don't necessarily need him. Now, in Aiyuk's defense, he was incredible last year. He was number 1 in yards per reception. He was the second highest grade receiver. He was 5th in receiving yards. He was 1st in deep receiver ranking. Grade, I guess you want to call it. However, like I said, the 49ers, their receiver core was far and away the best receiver core in the NFL last season. They were 1st in EPA on screen passes. They were over 3 times better than the next highest team in EPA on screen passes, RPO plays, and play action passes. All very decent leads over the number 2 team. So this 49ers team, as everybody's saying, because they make the argument about Brock Purdy, how he is, he's only a product of the system around him. Same argument for Jimmy G. I do think Brock Purdy, I've said this on the show countless times, but some people forget, so I'll reiterate it. Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He is more athletic. He has a slightly better arm, although his arm isn't as good as some of the top quarterbacks in the league, like a Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, whatnot, Justin Herbert. It's not horrible. It's not a Mac Jones. It's not a Daniel Jones. It's not one of those quarterbacks. It's good. It's above average. But I do think having Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Aiyuk, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings has his moments. I think that does help incredibly for Brock Purdy to succeed in that system. Now, albeit, you have to be the quarterback to make the plays. And I think, in large part, Brock Purdy has done that. He's had a couple rough patches in the playoffs. He's had a couple situations where the outcome could have been different. But I think, in large part, Brock Purdy has done his job. So that's really the only thing against Brandon Aiyuk. It's not performance. Performance says he's probably worth upwards of near $30 million, probably. And he's been a very, very consistent receiver over his career. So basically, his career goes since 2020. It's been 748 yards, 5 touchdowns, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and then 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns. So it's not performance. It's strictly probably, in my estimation, the 49ers won't give him $30+ million per year because they are not desperate for that wide receiver 1. They're not desperate for that type of a talented receiver because they have a lot of it. It's in abundance because that's kind of how the 49ers have been built for a number of years at this point. And especially, you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Sometimes the running game is the thing that's featured, and it's not Brandon Aiyuk or it's not Deebo Samuel, although Deebo Samuel can line up in the backfield and he does a pretty good job at that. But Brandon Aiyuk is not necessarily the missing piece of the 49ers. Now, again, in Aiyuk's defense, Brock Purdy and Aiyuk seem to have a very nice connection. Seemed like he relied a lot, Brock Purdy did, on Brandon Aiyuk. I think it was the Lions game, the tip-up and the deep catch after the tip-up. Crazy play. Aiyuk made a phenomenal play on that. But the reality is, if Brandon Aiyuk and if the 49ers, if they want to keep going forward as together as a unit under the 49er name, I think Aiyuk, I would love to see a number, but I think Aiyuk would need to come down from whatever number he's talking about. Now, if it's $27 million, okay, but I guess it is 30, to be fair. It is 30. Is he worth 30? I think it's close. Spot Track says 20, a little over 26. Maybe it's guaranteed money. Could be guaranteed money. But if it's upwards of $30 million, I think that's where, if they say 28.5, you go with 28.5, they want to move up. They don't want to trade him. But if he's going to keep skipping, practice and on social media, on TikTok, saying that they don't want me anymore to Jaden Daniels, an opposing team's quarterback, it's not a good look. Now, they met yesterday. Nothing came out today about it. Maybe it has in the past couple minutes, but I don't think so. So, we'll have to wait and see. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, OG Anunoby declined his Knicks player option as expected. Should the Knicks go all in, as well as Aaron Rodgers in the Middle East? What the hell is he doing out there? I'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. My dad, Stephen Harvey, will join us on Friday's show. But let's get into our next topic because this is interesting. So Jets reporter Rich Cimini came out, I believe, yesterday or the day before with this interesting quote on where Aaron Rodgers is. He says, jetting around the world between Haason Reddick and Aaron Rodgers, both AWOL for minicamp, the Jets have the Easts covered, far and middle, respectively. And that's a picture of Haason Reddick in Tokyo, Japan. So, Haason Reddick, we all know, wants an extension, long-term extension. He's playing on a 1-year deal. So he skipped OTAs, he skipped everything, basically. He's been MIA. Well, I guess you know where he is. He's in the Far East of Tokyo, Japan. Aaron Rodgers, he disappeared from mandatory minicamp, and people were all upset about it, including, I'm going to play this clip right here, including Hall of Fame, or no, maybe future Hall of Famer, but definitely Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman. He talked on The Herd a couple days ago about Aaron Rodgers missing mandatory minicamp. Take a listen.
You know, I know a lot of people do things differently, but God forbid the New York Jets start 1-3. This is going to be such a big distraction for that locker room because everyone's going to be talking about this is New York City. You know, this media. It's a media capital of the world. If I was in that locker room and Aaron Rodgers wasn't there for 3 days on the mandatory minicamps,
having played 4 snaps last year.
Having played 4 snaps off of an injury when we have 2 new receivers. We got a bunch of new linemen that we added to the team with a CBA that doesn't allow us to practice a lot. I guarantee there's 4 or 5 guys, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys in that locker room sitting there like, where's he at? I think it's a bad look for your leader, for whatever reason, to go and miss an unexcused absence. I mean, I was with Tom Brady in his 25th year or 23rd year, and he started missing OTAs here and there, but he was still there, never missed a mandatory minicamp.
That's true. Brady was always there until the end of his career when he finally decided to take a break after winning 5, 6 Super Bowls. He decided, you know what? Let me take a quick break. Let me just chill. Rodgers, 7-9 in the playoffs since his last Super Bowl. It's been a very long time since Rodgers had sustained success in the playoffs. But you know what's funny about this? I think this is why the media is so up in arms about Aaron Rodgers missing mandatory minicamp. It's because of what he said back in January 8th. He said, quote, If you want to be a winning organization and put yourself in a position to win championships and be competitive, everything that you do matters. And all the BS that has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building. So that'll be the focus moving forward. That's the focus of these exit interviews. Well, is going on a darkness retreat and taking ayahuasca and disappearing during mandatory minicamp, is that part of putting yourself in a position to win championships and be competitive? Everything you do matters. That's a quote from Aaron Rodgers. Everything you do matters. Including this. I understand. People are defending him by saying, well, he told the Jets months ago. Can't reschedule? You know the schedule. It comes out very early in the year, very early in the new league year. Do you have to go during mandatory minicamp? Does it have to be during that week? I mean, my guess is probably not. Now, could he be in the Middle East? He could be. Very well could be. Do I think that it's probably in the Middle East? I don't know. Who knows what he's doing out there? Is he solving, is he creating world peace in the Middle East? I'm not entirely sure. Is he solving conflicts? I got no idea, but my guess is probably not. Who knows what he's up to? But I do know that when you decide to skip a mandatory part of your team's camp, when you have new receivers, new offensive line, and that's the big one, new offensive line, new receivers as well. Although you have Garrett Wilson as your wide receiver one, you kind of know him for about 10 minutes because you were there last year before you got hurt. 4 plays, 75 seconds, and you were done. It's kind of important to build rapport with the rest of your team, especially your offensive line. What did Brady do the first time he got to Tampa? In a COVID year, not even his choice to be on these lockdowns and in quarantine. Not even his choice. He was at a high school field throwing until he got to get kicked out due to breaking COVID regulations. That's what Brady did. That's what Tom Brady did. He illegally practiced with his own players, his brand new players. And that was year one. Year two, it was basically the same thing. Practice, practice, practice. And that's what made Tom Brady so great. The relentless pursuit of perfection. Rodgers could really care less. He's also done this to a number of teams. He controls every organization he's ever been a part of, which is like 2. At the very end, Rodgers ran that show 100%. Diana Rossini said that Rodgers looking for a $50 million a year contract extension. Rodgers says, no, I'm not. What does he sign later that year? 3 years, $150 million guaranteed. So that's 3 years, $50 million per year. Got the report right. He comes to the Jets. Even before he comes to the Jets, even before the trade is completed, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, they were thinking about David Bakhtiari, see if you could pry him away. Mercedes Lewis. They were getting everybody. Everybody Rodgers wanted, they got, basically. You couldn't get Bakhtiari. You couldn't get Mercedes Lewis. They tried to get a bunch of those pieces. He had that wish list, the list of demands, I think it was called. If you want to, get rid of demands, let's call it a wish list. Let's call it hopeful wishing you get a bunch of the players you're comfortable with instead of building rapport with the receivers around you. Because we already saw the last year in Green Bay. Refused to throw to Christian Watson because he dropped a deep ball. They had to implement it with screen passes and end arounds to get him involved. It wasn't until week 12 they finally figured it out. If you didn't go on a darkness retreat, if you didn't disappear for a while and go on ayahuasca trips, maybe it would have been week 6 where you guys finally build that rapport. But the offensive line's the big one because that's kind of the reason why you got hurt last year. It's because your offensive line broke down completely. You were pressured on 100% of your dropbacks, which is 4. Now the Jets decide, you know what, we're going to help you out a little bit. We're going to give you pretty much a brand new offensive line. Elijah Vera Tucker's good enough, we'll keep him. Mekhi Becton, he'll probably be relegated. He's not that good of a lineman anyway. But Morgan Moses, you got. Morgan Moses is a pretty good one. You also got Smith, Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. Pretty nice pieces to have on your team. So this is just a bad look all around. And Edelman's right. Edelman's 100% right. I guarantee you, some of the players, the young players especially, are like, what the hell is he? I'm sure Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner are probably going to defend him to the ends of the earth. Breece Hall hasn't. I don't think he said anything about it. But I guarantee you, some of the players are like, he's our quarterback. I have to practice with Tyrod Taylor? I want to practice with the quarterback that's going to be throwing it to me. And God forbid I run a wrong route, I'm not going to get thrown to for the rest of the game. Allen Lazard's probably gone. He was technically on drop percentage the worst wide receiver last year. He was horrible. So Rodgers pickup. Randall Cobb did nothing, as I predicted. Well, he looks like he's gone. He's not going to do anything. I think Rodgers needs to build rapport. You gain chemistry. You like the calls. I mean, Rodgers is great at the pre-snap getting the defenders to jump. He's tremendous at that. Will we see a number of Jets offensive linemen jump because they're not used to Aaron Rodgers' cadence of trying to draw people off sides? Maybe. I think it's important to be there. Regardless, if you really are committed to winning and changing the narrative around the Jets organization, who I believe have the longest playoff drought in the 4 major sports in America, then I don't think disappearing and making your team uncomfortable and forcing your team to make choices of personnel that they probably don't want to make originally, I don't think that's the recipe for winning. Now, albeit, he was there for voluntary. Great. But I'd rather you skip voluntary because it's not mandatory and then go to the mandatory minicamp. Just the way it is. Now, as it should be, Robert Saleh will find and did find Aaron Rodgers because that's the way it should be. You can't let a guy, no matter what sort of reputation he has, whether he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot, doesn't matter. Greatest thrower of the football in the world, which I think Aaron Rodgers has a decent shot at being. A lot of people think he already is. I don't think it's fair to let him off the hook and set that kind of precedent where, well, because he has this type of a reputation, he could just skip a bunch of stuff. I don't think that's the right way to go. He tried to keep the hopes alive in the Jets to keep on fighting, saying that he'll return from his Achilles injury, 6 months after tearing it? I mean, was that a ploy just to keep the motivation high? Probably. Did the Jets use their advantage? I guess kind of, yeah. I think they went 7-10 last year with Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, and Zach Wilson. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, here's what's kind of funny about it. I do have the Jets doing well this year. I have them actually winning the AFC East. Just because I think, overall, they're very talented. Aaron Rodgers, your quarterback. Breece Hall, your running back. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Mike Williams. Offensive line's rebuilt. And your defense was the highest graded defense last year by PFF. I mean, there's a lot to like about the Jets. It's just history says a couple things. The offense itself won't be that great, and they always get the quarterback wrong. Does that mean Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again? I hope not, because I am picking them to win the AFC East to make a decent playoff run, just because they do have Aaron Rodgers. But I think just history speaks. And history says the Jets never get the quarterback right, and the offense, in large part, will be disappointment. All right, show's flying by. We got one topic left for today's show. It's going to be a quick one. So let's jump right into our next topic, our last topic, with so OG Anunoby denied his player option. That's kind of what we were all expecting, and he will become a free agent. It was a $19.9 million player option, and he will become an unrestricted free agent. Now, we all knew this. He'll test the waters. He's trying to get, reportedly, $35 million a year, and that's the starting number, which is interesting. The Knicks have a bit of a situation, though, because they also lost Hartenstein. It's a pretty good center to lose. And he's asking for at least $20 million a year. So I think the Knicks have a situation on their hands because they also will have to pay Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson next year, because my guess is they're going to be on player options next year, which they will deny to make that massive contract, the massive amounts of money. I don't think they're willing, especially Jalen Brunson. I don't think they'll be willing to take a hometown discount to just stay with the team. So what the Knicks should do is go all in and continuously go all in, because I'm still going to live on this hill and probably die on it too. I think if the Knicks were healthy and they were beaten, bruised, battered, they were shoved all over the place, players missing a bunch of time, it was really unfortunate to watch because the journey of where they got to was incredibly impressive. I think if they were healthy, they could have definitely caused some damage to the Celtics, maybe brought them to 7 games, and had the opportunity to maybe make it to the NBA Finals. Guarantee it would have been higher ratings than the Celtics Mavs. which already didn't do that well. You bring the 5 games, ratings don't do so well. You like the game 6. You like the game 7s. You don't like gentlemen sweeps when it comes to TV ratings. But, the Knicks have a contract situation because Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, they're at the end of their contracts. Mitchell Robinson's toward the end of his contract. Bojan Bogdanovic is at the end of his contract. Alec Burks-Hartenstein and Precious Achiuwa, they all ended their contracts. So the Knicks are a little bit screwed because they were a very, very good team. Second in the East. They made a decent playoff run. Then they just fell apart at the end due to injuries. So when it comes to OG, I think the Knicks actually had kind of a benefit there. Because will any team be willing to pay him $35 million a year when he doesn't have that great durability? The past, 4 seasons, 29 games, 34 games, 15 games, 32 games, all missed in the past 4 seasons. So the durability factor is not that high. However, this is something that nobody can deny. He's a difference maker. So on the Knicks, after the Knicks acquired him from the Raptors, their net rating he played 802 regular season minutes. The net rating was plus 21.7. The offensive rating was 122.6, and the defensive rating was 100.9. They all would have ranked first in the NBA. That's how great OG was. That's how big of an impact OG had on the New York Knicks. During the regular season, OG was 20-3. 20-3. And based on some advanced statistics and analytics, the expected win-loss for OG, the amount of wins that he brought to the Knicks, was 48, I believe. Or 42, excuse me. Might have been 41. Basically, he would bring he would bring you a 500 record just being on your team, which for one player to have that type of an impact on one team is incredible. So, yeah, like I said, he's looking for about $35 million a year. There's not many teams that could probably afford $35 million a year. You would need to pull off an assign and trade, and that's something also the Knicks have that's in favor of them. They still have full bird rights of OG Anunoby. So right now, the Sixers, they potentially could be in a situation where they could create the cap space for him. But right now, they're trying to pursue Paul George, which reports say it's kind of falling through right now, kind of dying out. So will they be able to land him? That's up for debate. But if they can't, well, you got Anunoby there, who, by the way, he played 50 games last season. He averaged 14.7 points, 4.7 rebounds, 2.1 steals, and 2.1 assists, 1.4 steals. Not bad. Not bad at all. The Knicks need to go all in if they want to have another chance to be very, very competitive, because defensively, OG made some phenomenal plays. Even in the playoffs, Game 2 against the Pacers, we all remember this game. In the first half and really in the first quarter, OG was the reason why the Knicks were at least in a respectable distance. So by the end of the first half, the Knicks were down by 10 because Obi Toppin scored 13, Tyrese Halliburton scored 22, and Pascal Siakam scored 10. OG had 22 points, 4 boards. He shot 60% from 3 and 53% from the floor. He was literally the only reason why, because the only other Knick in double digits was Josh Hart with 10 points, but he was turning the ball over like nobody's business because he had 5, the only player to have turnovers in the first half of Game 2 for the New York Knicks. Now, he did have 8 rebounds, but still, the 5 turnovers, and you're the only player on the Knicks to have a turnover in the first half, not a great look. And Josh Hart has had moments where he's turnover prone. He gets a little too quick. It's kind of Russell Westbrookian a little bit. So in order for the Knicks to stay successful and to stay relevant, I would say, in terms of always being in, arm's distance of winning a lot of games, a little bit of games, just games in general, you're going to need to go all in. So the most the Knicks could give Hartenstein is 4 years, $72.5 million. That's about $18.125 million per year. Other teams could offer him about 20 per year, which is honestly what the expected contract is per year. OG's at 35 per year. So let's round it up. So let's go 18, or I guess round down for Hartenstein. Let's go 18 and 35. That's a lot of money. $53 million per year for 2 guys. And on top of the fact that you're going to need to pay Jalen Brunson probably next year, because he's probably going to deny his player option, along with Julius Randle. He will probably deny his player option next year. So you'll need about 4 contracts in 2 years that are all going to be very, very expensive. But I think, honestly, OG Anunoby's impact is already spoken for. Like I said, 20-3 in the regular season, kept them alive in Game 2. The Knicks actually ended up winning by 9 in that game because OG was the reason why they stayed alive in the first half. Now, they were down by 10 in the first half, but it could have been much worse. They could have been down by 20 if OG has half the game that he had, or half the first half that he had in Game 2. Hartenstein, though, is another piece that I would definitely hold on to and pay him the respected money that he deserves. Because last year, in the entirety of the NBA, he was second in offensive rating, fifth in defensive rating, and second in offensive rebound percentage. Now, I've said this now for 2 years. I would get rid of Mitch Robinson and keep Hartenstein. Because we saw this season, Hartenstein stepped up when he needed to. Mitch Robinson, he's complained about his offensive production. On top of the fact he's not a good offensive player, he's great on the offensive rebounds, but offensive rebound percentage, Hartenstein's number 2 in the NBA. So he did his part. And we saw a lot of moments throughout the playoffs where Hartenstein would grab a rebound, kick it out, Dante DiVincenzo 3. Grab the rebound, give it to Jalen Brunson, he would score on a driving 2. Hartenstein showed that he can create similar or the same amount of production as Mitch, and probably a little bit more because he actually has a slight offensive game to him. I'm not saying he's a dominant big man offensively, but he's better than Mitch Robinson 10 times out of 10. And supposedly, the Knicks are reportedly looking to move Mitch Robinson somewhere, with the Wizards being a potential suitor for Mitch. Which, yes. Now, we saw early last season, I think around in October or December, where there was some sort of rumor that the Knicks would be asking for 3 first-round picks for Mitch Robinson. What? 3 first-round picks for a guy that's not good offensively, but who's great on the rebounds. Great on the offensive boards. I will give him that. But today's NBA is a lot about offense. Yes, it has its defensive moments. Look at the Celtics, had a couple nice defensive moments. The Timberwolves were the number 1 defensive team and made it to the Western Conference Finals. But all in all, offense always wins. Offense always wins. The Celtics had so many blowout wins this season. I think they had 2 50-point blowouts, a number of 40 and 30-point blowouts as well. Offense wins games here. Defense has its moments, absolutely. But when it matters most, think about this. The number 2 offensive team in the NBA, the Indiana Pacers, beat the Knicks, who were a top defensive team this season. Now, the Celtics were far and away the best team in the NBA, and we saw that throughout the playoffs. Also, Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. Kind of hard to win when your best player's out, but the Celtics proved why they were the best team in the NBA. So if I am the New York Knicks and I'm going into this offseason, it's either I have so many first round draft picks. Trade some of them, get another. You need bench. That's the problem. Because in the playoffs, the Knicks had to rely, because they were so banged up at the time, but the Knicks had to rely on Miles McBride, Deuce McBride, to go out there and start making shots. You can't rely on Deuce McBride to make shots. Yes, he had a couple nice games, but all in all, it wasn't that great of a performance. It really wasn't. So, like I said, if I'm the New York Knicks, go all in on OG, go all in on Hartenstein, then pray you either hit on a draft pick, able to trade for another big man so you can get rid of Julius Randle, or Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson take hometown discounts to stay with the New York Knicks. Now, supposedly, I heard this report. If they were able to move the pieces around and both parties wanted this to happen, the Knicks would pursue Anthony Davis. But that's not going to happen. The money's not there, the trade value's not there, and for the Lakers, the interest is not there. So if I'm the Knicks, you want to bring back the same unit, just like the Celtics did, and the Celtics are still probably going to be at the top of the East or very close to it, as they have in the several years at this point. And the Knicks had a tremendous run all the way to the 2 seed. I think they were like the 6th seed, and they marched all their way to the 2 seed at the very end of the year and had a decent playoff run. A very good playoff run, I'll even add to that. Because at that point, they were banged up, a lot of players missing. Jalen Brunson started off so slow, but then picked it up later on. The Knicks had a great playoff run. They just need to bring back their pieces. If you lose OG, your defense plummets. Your corner 3 production plummets. Who are you going to have to replace him? I think the best starting lineup for the Knicks, the best starting lineup, is obviously Jalen Brunson. Then I'd go Dante DiVincenzo. Then forwards, this is interesting. Forwards is interesting. I would go OG.
I would go Julius Randle, and then center, I would go Isaiah Hartenstein. I would put Josh Hart to the bench. I would. I don't know if people can get mad at me with that, but I do think the best starting five is Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, Isaiah Hartenstein. Then you have Josh Hart, Deuce McBride. If you keep Mitch for some reason, you have Mitch coming off the bench. That's not that bad. That really is not that bad. So, there we go. Let's take a look at the contracts real quick. Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. I don't know if you want to keep Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Burks, you might want to bring. I don't know. I really don't know. But if you're healthy, if the Knicks were healthy, I thought they could make a very, very good run. And if they're healthy, and that's your starting five of Brunson, DiVincenzo, Anunoby, Randle, and Hartenstein, is that not one of the top starting fives in the NBA? At least in the Eastern Conference. If not the NBA. So there you go. All right. Well, that wraps up a very, very good show. Ended a little bit early. But yeah, good show all around. I thank you for the constant support. Me and my dad, thank you for the constant support as always. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. I thank you so much for watching. Catch me and my dad Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. Night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM